Hologram Fun World. It's a theme park visited by families from all across the galaxy. It's a place where Tash and Zack can safely hang out while Hool continues his work. It's a place where daytime fun turns into nighttime terror. One of the park's attractions is called the Nightmare Machine. It scans your brain, then shows you your worst fears in holographic form. Hairy, creepy, crawly insects, Cyborian battle dogs thirsting for blood. But it's not real, so it's fun. Right? Wrong. As Zack and Tash will soon find out, nightmares can come true.
Younglings, it is I, Tim, and my co-host, Levi.
Hello.
This is Padawan Library, the greatest of Star Wars podcasts. Get out of here. Forcecast? Is that still a podcast?
Probably.
Or get out of... Hey, you know, my Star Wars podcast references are all from like 2005, so but we're the best. So anyway, with us, we have another guest. This is another Galaxy of Fear episode, our last one for the time being. And we have a guest with us, our fourth guest in a row, Levi. Isn't this crazy?
It is.
4 episodes in a row with guests. Can't believe it.
Who's the guest?
That's right, it's Sam McAuley. You might remember him from our episode 1 spectacular.
The Phantom Menace, fantastic time.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was there.
So Sam, though, we talked a lot about Phantom Menace, and we'll get into the book, obviously, in a little while. But we haven't talked in a more general way about Star Wars. I guess we have. Obviously, we have. Personally, we've known each other a long time. But you are a perfect guest for this show because you grew up with Star Wars, obviously, like all of us, but you also grew up reading a lot of Star Wars books.
Oh, yeah. I read a lot of Star Wars books back in my day. Slowed down a little bit. I mean, if I see James Luceno on the cover, you know, I'm snagging that from the store without paying for it. Just kidding.
He's not a shoplifter. Let's be. Yeah. So I remember. Speaking of James Luceno, I remember when Catalyst came out. I hadn't seen you in 4 or 5 months. Catalyst was the prequel book to Rogue One, if you guys don't remember, by James Luceno. And it came out in November of 2016. And I was out of commission for a few months there. We won't talk about why, but the first time any of my friends in this circle that often come on this podcast had seen me in months was you ran into me at Barnes & Noble where we were both buying Catalyst.
we have a picture to prove it.
That's a classic photo.
Yeah, well, we'll post that on the Instagram. It's not the most flattering picture of me, but it's a delightful memory, so I have no problem putting it up there. But you've been reading the new Thrawn books, right? That's kind of
I read the first 2 new Thrawn books.
Read the third one.
I haven't read the third one. No, I'm waiting for it to come out on the paperback. If you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is cheaper. That is maybe what you're saying.
Yes, that's what I'm implying.
Yes. But anyway, so we are getting into. We're recording this Monday the 21st, and it's 8:20 p.m. The tickets for Rise of Skywalker have just gone on sale.
Have you bought yours yet, Tim?
I looked at stuff, but my theater always adds a bunch of shows that are at better times for me and my hours, closer to. My theater just started doing reserved seating, which I've hated, at the theater when I have to pick out a seat, in person. I think that's annoying. but like for pre-ordering tickets, great. I can't wait to just come in at showtime. That's going to be incredible.
You want to guard your seat.
Yeah, that's amazing. And if somebody's sitting in my seat, I can be like, get out of here, motherfucker. And so, sorry. But no, did you buy your ticket?
No.
Do you know where you're seeing it? You don't even know where you're seeing it yet.
Well, we went to a theater the other day. It was an AMC theater, and like tickets were super cheap. This is actually where we saw Hustlers at. But the theater smelled like they had like let cats in the building. Like it was just a very foul-smelling theater.
You want the best possible experience, since you specifically are so predisposed to hate this movie. Like you're gearing up to hate this movie, so you need to have the best possible.
Well, if I go in there with no expectations, it'll blow expectations.
Yeah, you have expectations.
He has low expectations. Yeah. There's a difference.
Yeah, right. Don't be dealing.
We have no expectations, you and I. Isn't that right?
I'm there's some things I want to see happen. We can maybe get into that in a little bit.
Yeah, we'll talk. But here's the thing: the trailer's probably going to be up on YouTube sometime while we're recording this, so our plan is to record a reaction to it, and you will hear that at the break, probably.
Yes.
Right? So that's our plan.
Something like that.
Unless something goes wrong, that's what you'll hear, and if something goes wrong, you won't be hearing this part of the show. So, because I have enough time to actually cut stuff out of the show this week, unlike some other times when I had no time.
Well, I can't believe we're so on top of it this week.
I know, it's wild. Monday, early. It's so thank you for only being available at this time.
Oh, you're welcome, Tim.
However, it is not early in the day, and I worry that you, Tim, may get sleepy. And
I'm fine. I'm just fine. Listen, it's been a rough day, rough weekend, but I'll be fine.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm glad you'll be okay.
Just every institution is trying to fuck me. Mm-hmm. It's fine. Everything's fine.
You're trying to check my homie, you best check yourself.
Yeah, the bank better check themselves. The DMV better check themselves. My employer, in relation to the bank situation, better check themselves.
Say it, yeah. They better check themselves.
It's all, and listen, it's just like, I've just been living a bureaucratic nightmare the last 3 days, and I'm living in Brazil, the Terry Gilliam movie, not the country. So, anyway, so this is a respite. I feel great.
Yeah, I feel good being here. I see there's a Star Wars puzzle on the table. I can see Peter Cushing right now.
Oh, he was building that the last time I was at his house.
I've slowed down a little bit, but
it took 20 years to build the Death Star. Give Tim a break.
Oh, boy.
With Geonosian slave labor, no less. That's what we all learned in Catalyst.
Oh my God! The fact that Catalyst opens with Poggle the Lesser is in the I was just like,
so
this
good.
is.
I think about Poggle at least once a week.
Oh man! So there was that one piece of news. There's one little fun piece of fan news is that in Rise of Skywalker we're going to see the Ghost, the ship from Rebels.
Yes.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah,
it showed up in Rogue One already.
Yeah, it's cool.
I'm curious. I would love to see Hera in a movie.
It would be a much older Hera, I
figured she'd be the same age.
Well, those Twi'leks. You don't know. I don't know.
But I really think she could show up in The Mandalorian.
Yeah, that's way more likely. I think
Dave Filoni's involved, and it would fit the timeline pretty well. I'd be curious to see them bring an animation character into live action.
Yeah,
And I actually think Hera might be the best option, because I think the problem is, I think Hera has obviously a lot of fans, but the problem with adapting Ahsoka into live action, I think at this point, is that that performance is so iconic that I think people no matter who they cast, I've seen fan casts of Rosario Dawson or something, who's a great actress, obviously.
No shit.
Yeah, but would be good casting for the character, but I just feel like nobody would be able to please the fans when it comes to that. Whereas I think Hera while people love Hera, and I'm blanking on the voice actress's name, and I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I don't think there's as much of a deep connection in the fan base.
Yeah, that'd be cool if they brought an animated character to the big screen. They should do that with Saw Gerrera. Oh wait, they already did, Tim.
Oh, yes, it's true. Saw Gerrera, and he's a fairly different character.
Yeah,
but it makes sense. He's aged. I'm a big Saw Gerrera fan. You excited to get back to Clone Wars once Disney
I am
Plus
excited to
launches?
get back to Clone Wars. Yes.
you didn't get into Clone Wars in the first place.
Well, he started watching it earlier this year.
Okay.
Yeah, when we started the show and then they took it off Netflix, I got as Darth Maul had they just revealed that Darth Maul was
So
alive.
that's like end
whenever.
of season 3, right?
Yeah.
I got all the DVDs. That's not a problem for me, bro. You know I got
Had I
that.
known that, I would have borrowed them. But
to get my weekly, doesn't have anything to do with Star Wars shit in.
Okay.
I watched the pilot for Watchmen, the David Lindelof pseudo sequel to the book, and I liked it. I don't know what to say. I thought it was really good. He's a talented TV boy.
He's a very talented TV man.
Yeah, he's a talented TV boy.
Now, if we were to put it with his other pilots, so say Lost and
Pilots?
Leftovers, but
not nearly as good as the Lost pilot. That's
I
the
figured
best
that's
thing.
a masterpiece. That's
The
him and
Leftovers-
Abrams.
Leftovers pilot is probably the worst episode of The Leftovers, I would say, arguably. Or maybe the second episode, but the first...
but that beginning, though...
There's incredible stuff in it. I'm not dissing it at all. I'm just saying, I would say it's probably the worst episode of The Leftovers. But it's so different in terms of how to... honestly, you asked me if somebody that hasn't read Watchmen should watch... I don't know. It's pretty deep in the weeds. I was very happy I reread the book, because I hadn't read it in a few years. And there were little details that I was like, oh wow, I picked up on that only because I just read the book. But I have no idea how it plays to someone who hasn't read it. So it's kind of a different. It's a kind of a different. It's doing something that is those other shows didn't have to do, and it also doesn't have to do things those shows had to do. So it's hard to compare it as a pilot. I'm sure this will be my third favorite show of his. I can't imagine I'll like it as much as the other two, just because it's inherently derivative. But it's interesting. It's interesting.
Well, good.
This isn't a Watchmen podcast, though. But if I have my moral issues with the existence of any Watchmen expanded universe material at all. So, but as far as that goes, this is very well made. Regina King, very good actress. What can I say? She should be in a Star Wars movie. Throw her in something. Anyway, let's take our break.
Okay.
I don't think we need to talk that much longer. Do you have anything you want to say, Sam?
No, I don't really have anything.
I already spoke the truth.
All right, so when we get back, hopefully you'll hear a trailer reaction
after this. Yeah.
After this, but certainly after that, you will hear our discussion of Galaxy of Fear number 4, The Nightmare Machine. Stay tuned. Hey, so we just watched the trailer for the final trailer for Rise of Skywalker. I'm Tim, here with Levi as usual, and our guest this week is Sam. And also, just for this bit, we have Mel here.
She just watched the trailer.
I'm back.
Okay. Anyway, so Tim, what was? I'll ask you guys first. What was the one big moment, the big takeaway moment that stood out to you in this trailer?
Well, I thought there were a lot of cool little moments. I liked. I thought it was fairly similar to the other trailers, just new footage.
Yeah.
I thought it looks great. Abrams is very skilled at iconic image making, and always has been. I think there's. I know what you're gonna get.
3 minutes.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. My wife here is
My wife.
Shmi is my wife. Anyway, she's giggling. You said something like Abrams, and she was giggling, trying to diss Abrams.
He's great at composing images unequivocally. There's no argument against this.
Yeah.
With lots of lens flare.
Oh my
no.
god, you're just an internet troll. I should have not let you on.
You really shouldn't have. I don't know why you
All
did.
right,
but...
so okay.
Well, I figured I'd watch the trailer, and you'd watch the trailer too. Like we'd witness it at the same time, but you just came on here to be just a troll.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
I can't change
We
who I am.
need different perspectives. So I was just all I'll say is that I think there's lots of cool images. We didn't learn anything new story wise in this, other than 3PO thinks he's going to die, but Abrams would never. He would never.
The moment.
He would never put that in the trailer if 3PO actually dies, though.
No,
that's the thing. But even if he does, I'm happy to have a send off for old Anthony Daniels, that old cranky motherfucker.
Yeah. They've seen R2 in that trailer.
Oh yeah, there's more R2 in that trailer than there is in Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Finally.
Yeah, thank goodness.
I noticed he gets way more play than BB-8, which I liked in the
Yeah.
trailer.
Yes.
That's one thing I liked. Very.
I liked the bit with Adam Driver walking out of the water with his lightsaber and he kind of twirls it behind
Oh,
him.
that was hard as fuck.
That was beyond hard.
I said he looked like a wet cat.
Oh, that's so awesome. That's
Yeah,
cool.
anything with Lando, I was all over. I mean, it was 2 shots that had Lando in it. But
Yeah, he freaked out because he saw Lando in a super wide shot of the Rebel base or whatever. and I was like, who was that? I thought maybe it was Wedge, but it wasn't. That's just because Lando is featured heavily in the first trailer, so I didn't think it was necessarily notable if Lando was in this.
Yeah.
I'm excited. We didn't get much of the Kerry Russell character because she's pretty heavily featured in some of the promo art. So I thought we'd get a little more of her.
We're not. They're not going to unmask her till the movie.
Well, I don't mean unmasked, but I just thought we might get some shots of her in the mask.
Yeah.
Or that other character, that other new character.
Oh, that Jaina, I think?
Yes.
The potential Lando's daughter, potentially. She was in there. She was riding one of the horses with Finn.
Yeah. Oh, okay. If you say so.
I'm glad there was a nice... it's nice that they featured a moment with Rose.
Yeah, I was surprised.
Yes, I was very excited to see that too, considering all the Rose drama.
Yes. Trying to scrub her from existence.
The real internet trolls.
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
I like...
none of us are those people, so that's good.
I like the Force will be with you, then Leia says always.
Oh, that was awesome.
I literally...
that was awesome.
I was crying.
It seems like towards the end there's we get a potential over the shoulder shot of Sheev. Did you guys notice that?
Yeah.
No, I didn't notice that at all.
Yeah, no, we didn't see. Of course.
What was that?
Here's the thing, though.
Wait, Sheev was in the trailer?
He sounds great, by the way.
He sounds awesome.
Yeah, no shit.
Well, he looks great. He looks great. We met him. We didn't actually meet him. We saw him in real life, though. In life.
Yes.
In life, we have seen him. But anyway, the one thing, though, I thought was interesting Emperor-wise, and, our audience should probably know my feelings that I don't want him to be alive, at all. I think that's bad. But I'm accepting of the fact that probably he is to some degree. Hopefully not fully. Whatever. Regardless, empty...
He's a cyborg.
Definitely. That would be horrifically bad. But there's an empty throne at the beginning, and then you see from behind, and notice who's not in that shot. It's Rey. Notice who isn't in that shot. Kilo not in that shot. So it could be Kilo sitting on that throne. I'm just saying.
Well, there's this shot. It's at about 1:59, and there is
it's 10:01 here right now.
Go to the trailer at 1:59. There's this moment that I think is Sheev, and but it looks like he's moving, almost kind of like Newt Gunray's moving.
I was thinking
chair.
that in Phantom Menace.
Yeah. So
yeah, this was the shot I was talking about. I probably is just Sheev. Whatever, Sheev's alive. It's fine. Ugh. I think it looks cool though. I like a lot of the settings. They look unique and distinct from classic Star Wars settings.
Yeah, it does look different.
Listen, that opening shot, for example. This is what I'm talking about.
Woods and shit.
J.J. Abrams is very good at this kind of thing. With the little the helmet falling and then her following after it. That's like a great like image. He's very good at this kind of thing. It's why I just kind of wish that he would hire different writers. But whatever, it's fine.
Yeah, I kind of wish Kasdan would have been involved with this one again. Larry would have been around, but that
Yeah.
would have been fun.
Although I always have questioned how much of Force Awakens is him.
I don't question how much of Solo is his, though.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Different thing.
I love all the
I wonder
Chewie
what
shit.
this moment with Rey and Kilo destroying something together. I wonder what that is.
Well, I mean, what the item is that they're destroying?
Yeah.
I don't know. Listen, we're going to break down this trailer. Maybe we'll do a full opening segment next week on the trailer, but this is just our break, so I feel like we shouldn't go too long on this. Let's do one last go around. Sam, general thoughts on the trailer, final thoughts.
I like the images. It's getting me psyched up for the movie. Like I said, nothing new. Nothing that's like, oh wow. I like how it has more Palpatine like voice, and I love Ian. But it kind of was what it's nothing too crazy. I kind of expected a trailer like this. I like all the stuff with the woods. Like that was cool at the beginning.
Yeah.
But I mean, we still don't know what's going on in the movie, but hey, I'm still going to pay for a ticket and go see it, so the trailer really hasn't changed much for me, but I enjoyed watching it.
All right, so Mel, your other guest for this segment.
These are definitely some images that I'm going to force my eyelids open at, and hopefully they'll produce some serotonin. Other than that, I have come to expect nothing from this film. I've been hurt before, and I won't let it happen again.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Levi.
Well, I've been skimming through this trailer this entire time we've been talking. I noticed behind the shot of Rose, I think you can see Dominic Monaghan's behind her.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah. Anyway, I think this will be fun. I'm excited. There's
going to be some great action scenes. There's going to be some cool stuff.
Oh, one of the things I like is that it appears that Finn has a better understanding of the Force
than anyone in these movies.
No, because
I'll never diss Last Jedi again in my presence.
There was that whole.
I'm not in your presence, Tim. I can diss Last Jedi.
We're in our virtual presence.
Oh my God, we just watched it and you were just like, okay, it was better than I remember.
It's so good.
But you know how in like not Last Jedi in Force Awakens there's that like moment where like Finn's like, we'll use the Force, and Han's like, that's not how this works.
That's like one of the best moments. That's not how the Force works. That's so good. Listen, we talk a lot of shit, but these movies, I get excited for them every time. I will be disappointed in some aspect of this, but there will be moments of it that I think are great and transcendent, and I'll just live with it. I'll live with it as, wow, they made a fan fiction Star Wars sequel trilogy, and like, they're pretty good. That's going to be, and I'm okay with it. All right, whatever. We'll talk more about this going forward.
It's fine.
Stay tuned. Listen to our review of The Nightmare Machine, and you'll get. I'm sure we're gonna do like 3 hours of the fucking movie when it comes out. Like, let's be real.
Yeah, we will.
Right.
It'll be a lot.
Okay, so anyway, stay tuned. Bye.
Bye.
Welcome back, younglings. This is our final installment of the Galaxy of Fear month. Today we are reading Book 4 of Galaxy of Fear, The Nightmare Machine, and of course, as always, this is by John Whitman, cover art by Steve Chorney. Got a lot going on in this large Rancor. We got Zach, we got Tash, both wearing their customary white jumpsuits that they seem to always be wearing.
So, speaking of Damon Lindelof, they're Guilty Remnant clothing.
Very Guilty Remnant. And then this is our, we also get our first peek at DV. DV's on the cover of this one.
Oh yeah, he looks much more like a protocol droid than I was expecting.
Yes.
He constantly talks about how he's not a protocol droid.
Yeah, maybe he's just self-conscious of himself. I don't know.
He looks very worried. He has a very worried look on his face.
Yeah, he looks deeply sad.
We'll go.
I think Zach looks pretty goofy on this cover. I just think that's a goofy face.
That's what he's saying.
What bugs me a little bit is that like Tash's jumpsuit like isn't like exactly white, like it's a little off color. And,
I think that might be a lighting choice,
right? To separate the two of them, but
because like she's further in the background, closer to the light source, I guess.
Well, hey, Sam, have you ever read these books before?
I read, other than this one, there was one I read a long time ago as a kid. I think it involves something with Yoda and like cannibals and like Dagobah or something like that. I think it's a later one.
That sounds exciting. I'm excited for that one.
I might be getting mixed up the cannibal one with Boba Fett though, because Boba Fett showed up in one of those too.
Boba Fett was in book 2, City of the Dead.
Well, Boba Fett's also in The Hunger, and I know that because he's on the cover. So
that might have been the one. I haven't read those since like middle school. I remember there was one that involved like cannibals, and like I think Yoda was involved to some extent. I know they had to go to Dagobah, which it's like I don't know why they
have to have a guest star from the movies in every one of these books.
Yeah,
they had Wedge in the last book.
Okay,
and actually, let's get your take on this. Levi claims that there's no way that that he's not interested about Wedge being in episode 9.
I'm not saying I'm not interested. I'm just saying it'll probably be an awkward moment and it won't be fulfilling.
Tim just said that you weren't interested, and now you're contradicting Tim. I'm kind of confused right now.
Well, Tim always tries to like set me up as just like, oh, it's gonna fucking suck. I don't fucking care about Wedge. Like that's not what I said at all.
You don't
I
care
just
about
said,
Wedge?
That's
Why would
not
you
what
just
I
say
said.
that? You say you're not. You say it might be awkward. Now you're saying you just don't care. I'm kind of confused.
I said we're gonna have just an awkward exchange between Poe and him. That's what I said. There's just gonna be this awkward.
Yeah, it's really awkward seeing.
Do you know who wrote this fucking movie, Tim? Tim, do you know who fucking wrote Rise of Skywalker? Come on.
Yeah. It's J.J. Abrams.
Yeah.
And Chris Terrio, who wrote Argo. Very good.
Oh, yeah, he also wrote Batman v Superman.
He didn't really, though. Like, let's be real. Like, he's working with a totally... J.J. Abrams is not the same as Zack Snyder. These are both directors that have a lot of control over their screenplays, regardless of who has the credit on them.
Yeah, so true.
Whatever, you know what? Like that. Whatever. That's not.
Yeah, are you looking for a new co-host, Tim?
Yeah, I am.
Replace me. I'm tired of reading.
Tired of reading.
Wow.
Classic, illiterate
Trying to take the
Levi.
quick and easy path, you know what I mean? But no, speaking of Wedge, if Wedge does show up, which, there was that one book cover from, like, Spain or something where he's on the back and it's, like, a recent photograph of Dennis Lawson. Yeah. I'm not expecting a whole lot of screen time if he does show up. He might just be a general on a bridge, like some, like, Crix Maydeen, like Admiral Akbar level screen time in Jedi.
That's fine with me.
That is perfectly okay with me.
Yeah, guess what? Like, Wedge is one of my favorite characters because of the X-Wing novels, and that's really it. He's very cool in the movies.
He's great in the Rogue Squadron
games.
But
if he has a small moment where he just, like, gives Poe an order and Poe gives him a cool nod, which is that awkward moment you're going to talk about. It'll be something like that, and it'll be cool, and everybody except you will be happy with it.
Well, you know what? Let me ask you this, Lando. Well, Sam. If Nine Nub and Lando share a moment, do you think it'll be corny?
No, why would it be corny?
Tim thinks it'll be corny, cheesy shit.
I didn't actually say that. You were saying that, like, you were complaining about this Wedge idea, and then you're like, I need Nine Nub and Lando to share a moment, which I was saying that's just as corny or awkward as Poe and Wedge meeting, and you're like, it's just because you hate all the new characters, you've turned your back on Oscar Isaac. You're a bad person.
Yeah, I'm not going to repeat the things you said about Kylo Ren live on the air either.
Oh.
I have some respect for my friend, so...
What did I say about Kylo Ren? I can't remember.
He's a bitch.
Oh, yeah, I don't remember saying that.
Oh, yeah, you said that.
He's fine. He's not Darth Vader. Come on, people.
Oh, he's not Darth Vader. He's not the greatest villain of all time.
Yeah, see, Luke Skywalker isn't Vader, R2-D2 isn't Vader, Shmi Skywalker isn't Vader. Nobody is Vader except Vader. There can only be one.
You're dissing Adam Driver in my presence, like the fucking actor of his
I love
generation.
Adam Driver.
The actor of his generation.
My wife disses Adam Driver more than anybody. She can't stand
he's
him.
incredible. He's incredible.
I love him.
And then the performance. And listen, I sound like these last 2 weeks, I sound like I love these movies. People who have listened to this show for more than 2 weeks know that's not true.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan. I have lots of issues with them. But you know what's not an issue? Most of the characters. They're all pretty cool. Most of the performances. They're all really good.
I don't remember ever, like, straight up, like, dissing the characters.
Oh, but the way you're talking about Poe is disrespectful to somebody who you've worshipped your whole life.
Yeah, what the hell?
My whole life being like
Oscar Isaac's wish
since
is to be
2013.
screaming Dennis Lawson for 5 seconds.
Listen. It's whatever. We don't need to have a huge fight about this. This isn't Once Upon a Time in Hollywood or anything.
We're a bunch of grown-ups here.
Yeah, but like I just think though that like I just think it's a weird hobby horse to be like Poe and Wedge meeting would be this terrible thing.
I didn't say it's a terrible thing. It's just they're going to share like an awkward moment, and it's just like...
Were they going to kiss or something, and like Leia's going to walk in?
Yeah, that's an awkward moment. You know what they're going to do? They're probably going to share a couple lines of dialogue, and they will nod at each other. How is that awkward? Like, what is...
Anyway.
Can't take all this Wedge dissing.
Actually, you know what? I feel like, some of this stems from the fact that, J.J. Abrams notoriously has third act problems, and he's doing a third act of a third act, apparently, so...
I'm not saying I'm excited about the movie. Like, I'm not saying that I think the movie is gonna nail it. I'm saying that this one moment that might happen in the movie will be fine. I don't that's all
If Wedge even shows up. I mean, it's still up in the air.
Wedge might not even be in the movie, either. Like, there are photos of Dennis Lawson, current photos, that they could have used as reference for that. But anyway, answer your phone!
It was an Amber Alert.
Oh, shit. Okay,
yeah.
well.
So I hope they're all right.
I hope they're okay. Anyway, we need to stop arguing so much on the show. We used to be so fun and positive.
I know. Well,
I see like people get into the show and they'll listen to the early episodes and they'll be like, oh, it's so fun and positive. And I'm like, oh, please don't listen to the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood episode. I'm terrified.
Have I told you about the nightmare I had on the show yet?
What?
Oh, well, every time one of these movies is about to come out, I have a dream that I go see the movie. I had that dream finally where I saw Rise of Skywalker. So,
you might have talked about this last
Okay,
week.
yeah, well, I'll summarize again. I went to the movie, and then I got back, and I was getting ready to call you, and we were going to record our bonus episode where we discussed the movie, and I realized that as I'm calling you, that the movie put me to sleep, and I didn't see most of the movie. So that was my nightmare.
This is the
Are you sure you weren't?
relentless
He might have not been having a nightmare, but might have been stuck in some kind of hologram virtual reality.
Might have been. Oh, the Nightmare Machine.
All right, moving on to the Nightmare Machine. Hopefully you'll be a little less relentlessly negative, Levi.
Oh, this book rules. I like this book.
Okay.
We're positive up here in the Keystone State.
Yeah. See, this is all Texas's.
I know they do things different down in Texas, I'm surprised you don't have an accent yet.
I could if I want to, y'all.
All right. Well, this is book 4, and you had odd chapters this week. So
I certainly did, which means I had to do the prologue too.
I did it last week. You could do it this week.
I know. All right. So this yet to be prologue, our yet to be named Imperial scientist, who we now know. Can we
say soon to be named?
Soon to be named. Yeah, that little tidbit gets thrown at us, and I love that these books have like little open-ended questions that like will get answered eventually. So we know he is a Shido, just like Uncle Hul, and he is returning to his lab. He's pissed. He starts throwing over tables, breaking beakers. And he sits down in front of his 5 Project Starscream screens. And 3 of them are static, thanks to those meddling kids and that dumb droid. And we now learn that Project Starscream is a 6-step plan that he plans to use to bring the galaxy to its knees, and that Phase 6 will take place in his own citadel. And Phase 4 is ready to go, and this dude is wanting to make cool, and his orphans pay.
I figured out who the scientist is. My one last guess before it's revealed. It's Kevin Feige. These phases, all these talks about phases. Listen, anytime you start talking about your film slate as a phase, you sound like a villain. That's all I'm saying.
You're truly, in the words of Coppola, it's despicable. That's what it is.
Oh boy, that's so funny.
I saw this. Our friend Grant, friend of the show Grant, he posted an Onion article today on Facebook, and it was Orson Welles rises from grave to say that Marvel movies suck.
I love it. I want every auteur from all time to just talk shit about the Marvel movies, just because it reveals a lot of people who want to tell on themselves about how cretinous they are. How it's not that you disagree with these people. Fine, I agree. They are cinema in the most basic definition of the word, and I wouldn't whatever. But the fact they get so mad about these old men who don't like superhero movies, it's not weird.
Get over it.
It's very normal. If you're in your how old is Coppola? 80?
Yeah, he's in his 80s.
Yeah, why would Coppola care about those movies? The movies he liked when he was a kid were Universal horror movies.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, so it's that's his popcorn entertainment, and those movies were made with far more artistry than the Marvel movies. I don't know what to tell you guys. It's just facts upon facts upon facts.
Do you think De Palma will be next? Say something?
Oh, De Palma talks so much shit, so I would love to hear De Palma talk shit on the Marvel movies. All the great Italian-American legends of the 70s, all coming out of the woodwork.
That whole American Zoetrope group, if they all come out, and I don't know.
I can't wait for Philip Kaufman to be I didn't make the right stuff for this. I didn't make Invasion of the Body Snatchers for this. Okay, it's whatever. It doesn't we sorry if you like Marvel. We're not talking shit on you personally, so please don't take it personally.
It's okay, because the Star Wars and Marvel will be one and the same here.
Whenever
Kevin produces his one movie or whatever it is. So whatever.
Whatever.
Whenever
one movie.
The only way that would ever happen is if freaking Tony Stark would buy the rights to Star Wars in the Marvel universe and make a Star Wars movie in space. That's the closest thing I think we'll get to that.
Tony Stark is, I believe, dead in the Marvel.
Oh, obviously it would take place in between Endgame and Infinity War.
That's what he did in that time off, after
the
he
5 years was he's just
hey.
I can buy these film properties on the cheap because there's half the human.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh boy.
Okay, getting into the book. Chapter 1 on the planet Koan, at the Galactic Research Academy. Zach and Tasha Randa are heading to the Academy Library to see if they can pull any information on their mysterious uncle, Uncle Hool. He's an employee of the Academy, and he has an office there. So they sneak past some remote sentry droids, and they make it to the library, and the files there are kept under tight security, but luckily the two of them have a ciphered data disk that DV created to try to crack the files aboard the Shroud, the ship that used to belong to the infamous Dr. Death, the late Dr. Evazan. So they go to pull the files, and surprise, access denied. They slip in that data disk, and still access denied. And Zach groans, "Oh, why isn't this working?" And then a voice from behind, "Because I disabled it. It's Uncle Hool."
Uncle Hool.
Who are you?
Oh boy! All right, is that the end of the first chapter?
That's the end of the first chapter.
Yeah. All right, so Hool explains that he knew the kids would try to look up information in the computer, so he's put in all these encryptions and all that stuff, but he thinks they're better off not knowing more about all these strange occurrences from the last few weeks. He suspects he'll run into the scientist again, and he believes the scientist, who remember is also a Shido, like him, is a man named Borgorgimus Gog. Bormorgamus Gog.
It's a wild name.
It's a very hard to say. The first name is Borgamus. The last name is Gog.
I'm just going to call him Gog.
Yeah, well, that's what we'll do from now on. But I figured our listeners have the right to know the full name. They have the right
Gog.
to know.
If you're listening and you need to know the full name of every character.
The Freedom of Information Act is a very important piece of legislation, and whatever. Bailing on this bit. Okay, so anyway, so this guy, and then Hool says that Gog is very dangerous, and the kids are he's gonna send the kids on vacation with DV while Hool gets up to some mysterious business. And where is this vacation going to be? Why, Hologram Fun World, of course. And on the approach to Hologram Fun World, Tash lets Zack know that Force Flow, remember her online buddy, her HoloNet buddy, who tells her all about the Jedi and is maybe connected to the Rebel Alliance, we don't know, has gotten a hold of Hool's personnel file from the Empire back in the day and sent it along. There's nothing too mysterious. He was born on the Shido homeworld, but there's 4 years missing in his record. He left his homeworld, and then there's nothing. 4 years later, he enrolls in the academy. So what was he doing in the meantime? Tash mentions that she told Force Flow that they were going to go to Hologram Fun World, and Zack's like, Uncle Hool said we shouldn't tell anybody, but she's like, hey, Force Flow's a good guy, he's on our side, right? Is Force Flow a good guy? We don't get much more into Force Flow the rest of this book, but that's an interesting question going forward. And when they land, Hool departs. He says he's not going to tell them where he's going, all that stuff. Classic Hool. And Tash and Zack seem impressed with the facade, anyway, of Hologram Fun World. And Zack spots some kids their age riding mini skyhoppers, and he's like, that's just prime as fuck. Prime as fuck.
Yeah, it's very prime.
So then he smells something. He's like, a gross smell occurring in my nostrils. And he looks up, and there's a giant ring!
Oh, shit.
Oh. I also, before we go any further, I do want to remind everybody that the first appearance of Hologram Fun World was in the Jedi Prince series, Book 5, I believe.
Queen
of the Empire, yes. But even though that was the first appearance, this, continuity-wise, takes place before the events of that book.
So and
there's some other references to things that were found in those Jedi Prince books.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that.
We'll get to that. So Chapter 3, the Rancor roars and starts to chase them. They book it, but with every step, the Rancor, he can travel twice the distance they can, because, of course, he's so large. And Zack turns around, and DV is just standing there. They yell at him, run! And he doesn't move. He doesn't even flinch. And the Rancor pounces on DV. They scream, thinking that their beloved sarcastic droid has been pulverized. But then the Rancor vanishes. It was a hologram.
Whoa!
Where at Hologram Fun World?
Yeah, and DV, he looks at them and he crushes them for being pathetic humans. He's like, my receptors knew there was no biological readings. Like, come on, it had to be a hologram.
Get with the program, kids.
Yeah. So DV's like, oh, well, we better find a hotel. And Zack's like, oh, we got no time for that. We got rides. Come on, we got to go do the little daredevil inside me. He's got to see it all. So he runs. The first building he runs into is called the Hall of Reflection, and he enters a bare room. And suddenly, 12 hunchback trolls with spiky hair enter. He screams and he runs for the door, and the trolls chase after him. But when he reaches the next room, he realizes...
these trolls, by the way, they have the voices of Anna Kendrick and Justin Timberlake.
Oh yeah, I think that was on page 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is set in between Trolls and Trolls 2 on World Tour. Or is it on tour? I can't.
I think it's World Tour. I don't know why I know this at all. I didn't watch this movie.
So the trolls don't chase him into the next room, so he pokes his head back in, and he sees that the trolls peek their heads in, and then it dawns on him, oh, halls of reflection, these trolls are my reflection, duh! And so that's when... this is basically the Star Wars-ified version of a funhouse mirror, and Tash comes in, she's some creature too, and they roam about the building having a blast. And then finally, Zach looks in one of the mirrors, and he's got a mustache, and he does his best pirate impersonation, but then suddenly his reflection reaches out and grabs him by the shirt. Ah!
Before I move on, I just want to say... unfortunately, you and I are both kind of theme park boys in terms of we enjoy reading about theme parks.
Yes.
And so this book is kind of fun. It's a whole Star Wars theme park.
They should make one of those someday.
Yeah, but they should actually build some holograms are becoming a big thing. They should build like a section of Galaxy's Edge that's like
Abba's
hologram fun world.
I agree.
Yeah, I'd be cool with that.
Yeah.
You know, that Hall of Mirrors, I mean, they should do, like, some kind of mirror thing in a Star Wars movie where, like, a character, like, looks in and sees, like, a bunch of reflections of themselves. That'd be pretty deep shit, man.
Yeah. Never diss that scene in my presence.
Yeah, obviously.
Is, close to a masterpiece.
Yeah, okay. No shit.
Anyway, so Chapter 4. The person who grabbed Zach turns out to be...
Who is it?
Lando Calrissian!
Whoa!
Alright, so he's our classic trilogy character of the week here.
But, there's one more surprise character in this book, too, we'll get
Another
to.
character from Empire, obviously.
Yes, we will get to them. But this person... We'll get to them very soon, actually. This person, he turns out to be Lando, who he just bumps into him, pushes him off, but he's on Hologram Fun World because he wants to... He's investigating it as a possible investment opportunity for him. He might want to take it over. This is before he gets to Cloud City.
I think he mentions Cloud City.
He mentions that he's on his way there to check it out, to check out the Tabana mines.
Okay. Yeah, you're right.
That's much later, but here... but he's here to like possibly invest in and possibly take over Hologram Fun World, it looks like. But he asks Zach and Tash if he can tour the park with them because he wants to see which parts of the park actually appeal to children. And DV's like, no, we don't know you. Nice try, Lando. But Zach points out that the people who might be looking for them, like the Empire perhaps, would be looking for 2 humans and a droid, but they would pass them over if they saw it was 3 humans and a droid.
Yeah, confuse them.
And DV concedes this point, but Zach kind of just immediately is like, "Okay, Lando, come back," because Lando, was a gentleman, and as soon as it was turned down, he's like, "Okay, fine, whatever." If you
Very respectful, yes.
Very respectful. This sort of situation, if handled improperly, could come off as a weird thing for Lando to do.
Hey, you 2 kids.
But I feel like it's written like in a reasonable way. It makes sense.
He's so cool in this book.
Oh, he rules. We'll talk about Lando. They spend the day with Lando, and eventually they arrive back at the hotel on the grounds, the Gravity Well. That's what Galaxy's Edge, that hotel should be called.
The Gravity Well.
Anyway, Zach sneaks down to Lando's room, where he's holding a Sabak game with an unnamed Twi'lek, an unnamed Ithorian, and Dengar!
Oh!
So, Dengar, Lando outmaneuvers everybody until it's just him and Dengar, and Lando wins by forcing Dengar to fold. And Dengar then tries to force Lando to reveal his hand, and Lando's like, nice try, fair attempt. After Dengar leaves, Lando shows Zach his hand, and it's a losing hand. It would have lost to Dengar's hand. So, Lando's the bluff god.
You gotta know when to hold him, know when to fold him, man. Know when to walk away, and know when to run.
So then he gives Zach kind of a basic lesson in Sabak the rest of the night. And the next day they go on many different attractions. They ride some holographic Whalodons.
Oh,
damn.
That's
Like
some Darth
Darth Vader shit.
John Whitman clearly read the Jedi Prince series before these books.
It's wild. So, remember, these are Bantam's Skylark, which was Bantam's young readers imprint, and so were the Jedi Prince books. And then I think the only other series that was published through them was the Junior Jedi Knights book.
Yes.
Okay, that would have been in the 90s too.
And then everything after that was Scholastic. So so maybe there was just kind of a pressure from the publisher, like, hey, your audience might have read these books, you should throw in some references to that. But anyway, they also go to the Anywhere room, which is apparently they can regenerate replicas of any known planet, and Tash briefly considers, ooh, what about Alderaan, my home planet that was blown up.
R.I.P. Bale.
But she thinks better of it. They're having a vacation. They want to have fun, and it would be a sad
It would be.
thing. And so then they come across the Nightmare Machine. This is an under construction ride, a new ride. It's not open yet, but Zach kind of distracts a maintenance droid, and he sneaks in. And Zach's like, oh, this just seems like kind of basic under construction shit. But then he hears a voice. And he peers into the room where he hears the voice emanating from. And who could it be? It's Borgorgamus
I do want to say, I don't know if you heard Sam say this, Tim. He said R.I.P. Bale. I want to second that. R.I.P. Bale Organa.
Yeah, you should have said it right after I
R.I.P.
said
the character Bale.
Yeah.
Jimmy Spitz is fine, right?
Yeah, obviously
Yes.
he's fine.
He's on a TV show right now. I saw a trailer for it.
He's always on TV shows.
Yeah, he's on a new show.
He's
It's him
always
and-
working.
Jimmy Spitz is the GOAT.
Yeah, he's
One of the greats. Never dissed Bobby Simone in my presence. Just saying. All right, trailer's still not up. It's 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, all right. So Zach realizes that Gog has yet to see him, so he keeps to the shadows, and he witnesses 4 henchmen bring in the 2 kids that he had seen earlier riding around on the hover skis. They're bound and gagged and thrown on 2 medical tables. Then Gog presses a button on a large black cube, and some horrendous creature comes out, and it's described on page 41. First, 2 arms appeared. The hands were long with thin splayed fingers. The arms themselves were terribly thin, like skin stretched tightly over dried bones, and each arm had 2 sets of elbows, which made them quiver and swerve in weird directions.
Hey, don't talk about Tim like that.
A classic joke.
Next came the creature's head. Its face was vaguely human, but the head was enormous and round. Above 2 red eyes, the skull was crisscrossed with hundreds of worm-like veins, as though the creature's brain were about to push through the skull. Its lips were thin and tightly shut, with the corner of its mouth stretched almost back to its tiny ears. So that's a very creepy creature.
Ew, that's fucking disgusting.
Okay. That takes a little too much explanation for why that's so funny to us. But yeah.
One day. Hang on.
day, yeah,
That's not it. So
Ew.
Zach, he runs outside and he finds Tash and Lando, and he explains what's going on, and Lando is very confused by this GOG character, and Zach says he's a criminal, and Lando says, well, I know the Baron Administrator of Hologram Fun World. Perhaps he can make sense of this GOG character. So they head to the Baron Administrator, and his name is Dana Faji. Or Faji.
Feige.
Kevin Feige. And the Baron Administrator, he is a small, round, jovial type with red cheeks. And he assures...
And he always wears baseball hats. And he never says anything interesting in interviews.
Always talking about phases. Phase 4 of Hologram Fun World.
Wears baseball hats to the Oscars.
Nice try.
Well, Kevin Feige assures Zach that there is nothing wrong, and he says they should all go back to the Nightmare Machine, and he'll prove it. So they get there, and Zach is shocked to find that the room is empty. And Feige, he looks at them and says, well, I guess there's nothing to be afraid of. Zach says that, and Feige responds, oh, I wouldn't say that. And on page 46... so Feige says, oh, I wouldn't say that. And then as he spoke, the lights went out, and Zach was plunged into complete darkness. Tash! DV! He called out in fear. Lando! There was no answer, but a sudden soft sound coming from the floor around him. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Tash? He said faintly. Skittle, scattle. He heard the skittle scattle of tiny feet, thousands of feet. They scraped along the ground around him. Something brushed around his foot. Then again, and again, scratch, scratch, scratch. Something crawled up his pant leg. Zach panicked. He tried to brush it away and felt something soft and hairy and many-legged cling to the back of his hand. Then it started to crawl up his arm. More of the skittering creatures were crawling up his pant legs. He felt them crawling inside his pant legs and inside his shirt sleeves, pushing their way up his shirt, crawling out from under his collar and scrambling around the back of his neck. Zach wildly thrashed his arms and legs about, trying to get the horrible creatures off of him. He felt something tugging and biting at his hair. Zach opened his mouth to scream, and a dozen hairy legs scrambled past his lips.
So,
it's like the scarabs from the Mummy, kind of.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it is.
One criticism of John Whitman's prose here, you can't use the phrase pant legs 2 times in one line of printed page. That just sounds weird. Okay. So, moving on, Zach, he's getting covered in all this hairy stuff. He's like, what's going on? And, Dana Faji, we'll call him by his real name. Sorry, Kevin. He calls out, "End simulation!" And everything disappears. So he explains that the Nightmare Machine does a brain scan and replicates the rider's greatest fear. So it makes sense that Zach would have seen GOG earlier. And Faji offers to let them all take a ride. And Tash, Zach, Lando, and DV, they all jump in, and this time they're all riding on one skimboard. The balance is crazy on this skimboard. And they're being chased by Cyborian battle dogs. Tash falls off and is pounced on by all these dogs. And Zach calls out to end the simulation, but it doesn't stop. Tash is in danger from these simulated dogs.
Cyborian guard dogs, damn.
Ugh.
So Zach keeps shouting, "End simulation, end simulation," but nothing happens. He jumps off the hoverboard and fearlessly stands up to the Cyborian battle dogs that were killing his sister. So he hears Tash yell, "End simulation," and it all fades away. Tash is on the other side of the room, and he thinks that they were in the nightmare together, but Tash claims she was experiencing her own nightmare, and they both agree maybe it's time to leave the Nightmare Machine. So they step outside, and Zach looks around, and he sees the horrendous double-jointed creature that Gog had unleashed, crawling on the Hall of Reflection. It slips inside the building, and Zack is determined to go after it. So here on page 57, there's a small bit I'm going to read here. Finally, he reached what he guessed was the center of the maze. Zack saw an image that made him gag. He was looking at his own face, but his skin had melted and hung from his cheeks like sagging clumps. His eyes had sunk into their sockets so that they looked like holes in his skull. His arms had grown twice as long. His knuckles dragged on the floor. His elbows reached down to his knees. I was going to make something of, like long arms, long penis, that kind of thing. But
Ew, it's a kid's book.
I know, it makes no sense. I apologize. His
Sam keeping us clean.
Keep it PG, like the first 5 Star Wars movies.
Revenge of the Sith fucking everything up.
Yeah, right? Game changer.
God,
His knees, which were now jointed in the opposite direction so that they pointed backwards instead of forwards. "Ugh!" he cried. He reached out to touch the glass that held his distorted image. His reflection jiggled as it moved and reached forward in the same motion. As Zack touched the glass, his reflection touched the glass at the exact same point, and the whole image shimmered into a blur. When the mirror cleared again, Zack was looking at the perfect image of his true self. He saw his own messy brown hair and his own face, his reflection grinning wickedly. That was odd, because Zack didn't think he was smiling. Zack tried to raise one hand and touch his face, but his arm felt heavy and awkward. With the same effort, he managed to lift his hand, only to find it was long and deformed as the horrible image he had seen before. He had tried to step back from the mirror, but stumbled. His knees were bent backwards. Zack dragged his 2 clumsy hands up to his face and felt the skin hanging limp and soft from his cheeks. He let out a wail. Zack had been turned into a monster!
So, yeah, he's shocked by what he sees in the Hall of Reflection, but when Tash and crew catch up with him, he tells them about this evil doppelganger, this monster that he might have turned into. And everybody's kind of dubious about this, but Lando tells them, let's go see Faji again. And, Faji, when they see him, he says, oh, yeah, he apologizes for whatever glitch might have occurred in the Hall of Reflection, and Faji and Lando start having some sort of business conversation. Like, Lando's like, hey, like, if you have all these glitches, we might need to talk.
We need to have a private conversation.
And so Zack zones out while all the business is being discussed, and he looks out the window to the crowd. And at this exact moment when he looks out, the crowd disappears en masse!
Where'd they all go?
So, hang on here. I have a reading a bit here. Zack was so startled that he didn't cry out. He blinked, thinking his eyes were playing tricks on him. They weren't. The plaza beneath the administration building was empty. The crowds had vanished. They're gone, he said in pure astonishment. They're all gone. Who's gone? Tash asked. Everyone, he said, pointing out the window. Tash and Lando rushed to the window. As far as the eye could see, the streets were empty. Hologram Fun World was deserted. See, Zack insisted. I told you something was going on here. He turned to Dana Faji and demanded, what happened to everybody? Faji stammered, please, I assure you, no one has been harmed. Lando glowered. Zack may be right about this place after all. I think you've got some explaining to do, Faji. The chubby man tugged at his red beard. Master Calrissian, I'm afraid I do owe you an explanation, he sighed. You see, business at Hologram Fun World has not been good lately. Good as it could be. We haven't had as many visitors. And when the park is empty, the people that do come feel less excited about being here. So in order to make up here full, we You created holographic visitors, Tash guessed.
Vocal trace.
Yeah. I thought it was a Lando line for it when it was Tash. Anyway, exactly, Fadji confessed. We do have few real visitors in Fun World, but most of the crowds you've seen today, well, they're computer-generated images. I knew it, DV sniffed. DV, you knew that? Tash started. Well, of course, the droid replied. Any droid worth his circuitry would have known the difference. But most species wouldn't, Fadji acknowledged. An investor... Sorry, I'm putting everybody to sleep.
So much reading.
Yeah,
is this like an
sorry about
audiobook
that.
or something?
Yeah. An investor certainly wouldn't,
You
Lando.
ain't Jonathan Davis from Korn, my dude.
Yeah.
Lando here, an investor certainly wouldn't, Lando said accusingly. Fadji, why do I have the feeling that you're trying to trick me into investing in your Fun World? But okay, so moving on from here, Lando leaves, and they think that he's like mad, but like Lando is like actually laughing. He thinks like this is so silly that he like Fadji tried to pull this on him, and he thinks, well, I guess if I was in the same boat, I would do the same thing. So they go back to the lodge, and then that night, Zach has a spooky dream that melts into another spooky dream that melts into a third spooky dream. A lot like his day at Hologram Fun World.
Yes.
So he wakes up and he goes to Tash's room and he rings the doorbell a couple times until finally she says, "Come in." When he enters, he finds Tash sitting on the bed looking out the window. He tells her about his dream, but her response makes him wonder if she's all right. So he asks, he's like, "Hey, what's on your mind, sis?" And her response sends chills up his spine. She says, "One of us has to die."
What? Alright,
Sucks.
so... Tash seems to have said this in some sort of daze, under some sort of maybe... Not mind control, but she, rubs her eyes out. She's like, what did I say? I don't know what I said. Very interesting. Is Tash going crazy? So, she wakes up and doesn't remember saying it, and Zach is still paranoid about the park in general, and Tash tells him to relax. Maybe Feige's telling the truth. Maybe, it'll be fine to have, 12 projects in 2 years. That'll be fine. That'll be fine. And DV and Tash insist that he should have fun. You need to chill. Wait, I skipped something. DV comes in to the room and says that Lando's invited them to hang out at the park again, and Zach is unsure. He wants to stay in his room all day, and DV and Tash are like, you gotta have some fun. We're here on vacation. Let's chill. And they meet up with Lando, who's still possibly going to invest in the park if they drop the frightening theme.
Yeah, a little spooky.
He's like, that seems like not the best direction to go for families. Lando really cares about family values, as we know.
Yeah, he does.
And Zach asks a couple of Bothans. Okay, Zach just goes up to these random two Bothans, right? And he's like, how does it feel to be an illusion?
Okay. Probably Eye or something like that.
Now, ultimately, spoiler, everybody at this park is a hologram.
Yeah, welcome to the Grand Illusion, baby.
But,
come on in and see what's happening.
But imagine somebody just coming up to you and saying, how does it feel to be an illusion? What a wild thing to do to just random strangers. But anyway, and then those Bothans, they get scared by the Rancor shows up again, and Lando's like, and they're both kind of like Lando and Zach are kind of talking shit about the Rancor, like, that's fake Rancor, fake ass Rancor,
yeah.
And Lando, and they're talking smack, but then as Lando's talking smack to him, the Rancor just leans in, swallows him.
Yeah. The whole thing.
The whole body.
And this ain't no hologram, this is the real deal.
I have something I want to say about holograms. There's a Star Trek Deep Space Nine episode that is about like some planet with hologram people that are revealed to be holograms. And there's this line that my father and my brother, and I don't know if I ever even saw the episode, but we've always referenced it for literally like 25 years, where at the end, one of the guys on the planet is just like, I guess we're just going to have to get used to the fact that we're all holograms. One of the great lines. I haven't gotten through my Deep Space Nine rewatch yet, so if or watching through mostly for the first time, so I hope that line is exact, but I'm scared it won't be.
Yeah, you can just skip that part if it isn't.
Anyway, sorry. But yeah, we don't know. Is Lando actually eaten, or is this another illusion? We don't know.
Maybe if it was called Eaten Alive, I think he was eaten, but it's called Nightmare Machine, so more inclined to think it's a nightmare. Oh.
Well, I am expecting.
It's supposed to be on at halftime. There's still 5:42 left in the second quarter, so it might be a few more minutes before it's on.
Okay, cool.
All right.
I'm checking.
We're talking about the trailer.
Checking football scores for the first time in my entire life. Last time I was this excited for a halftime show was Sir Paul McCartney.
Oh.
I never did Bruce Springsteen again in my presence.
Yeah, or The Who.
Well, the Who show was pretty bad.
Pete Townsend wrote a couple songs, man.
Yeah, he wrote those songs 50 years ago, my guy.
Yeah. And then the
performance was not that good.
Yeah.
That's why they have a separate producer for... what's up?
Oh, well, that performance of My Generation is kind of sad. So
isn't Will.I.am in that?
Probably. I can't remember. All I remember is just like, okay, he can still get like the Tommy voice down, but like he can't do that early Who voice anymore. But anyway, no, don't look at me like that. First off, I can only see you, Sam, in this damn FaceTime. Tim always sets this up. We did this so that we could, like, see each other.
Listen, Tim, I can't get the seating arrangement is not going to work out where we both could be in frame at the same time.
You could sit closer to each other. How about that, huh?
It's impossible.
Yeah.
Impossible.
All right.
Fine. Here you go. Look, I'm moving it.
Oh, now I just... there we go. Now,
now I gotta just crane my neck for the...
Yeah, now you can just have...
Well, you didn't have to go so far, you know. What if you... Can you go back further?
There we go. That's the best you're gonna get.
There we go.
You're
that
gonna
works.
Half our faces.
That works for me. All right.
And really, you're not gonna get me at all.
Now I can see...
This is my natural position, too.
No, it's fine.
And
now
we can't see you at all because the connection's so poor.
Yeah, it's not really fair.
Oh, I didn't know.
We're leaving this all in the podcast.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
But now I get a nice view. Oh, nice close up. I can see the Last Supper in the background. This is great.
That's not the Last Supper. There's more than 12 disciples up there.
It's a different version of the Last Supper. Anyway.
Anyway. Well, I am expecting that Hologram Fun World will be soon hearing from Lando's lawyer, and with business already in a tight financial corner, they'll have no other choice than to file bankruptcy.
Yeah,
this is Chapter 11.
Lobot is his accountant too, I feel like.
Accountant, lawyer.
He does everything for him.
He does everything. So they run, and they find indoor. They're trying to find indoor shelter, but all the doors in Hologram Fun World are locked. So DV has an idea. He's fairly certain that Rancors hate water, so let's go to the bay. They reach the bay and they start swimming, and they get into the water, and they're just about neck deep. And DV explains, I got flotation devices in my chest. I'll be all right. So they see the Rancor. He gets to the edge of the water, and then he takes a huge leap into the water and starts swimming.
I was just checking.
So DV was wrong, and as the Rancor swims towards them, every move he makes causes waves that push the gang further and further out to sea. Now they're treading water. What the hell are they going to do? They see air bubbles around them, and could it possibly be the Whalodon, the Whalodon that they rode earlier the other day? They're saved. Or so they thought, because when the Whalodon surfaces, it opens its mouth and swallows them whole. It's Pinocchio, Tim.
Oh, so
I was thinking more like Jonah, but whatever.
Well, Pinocchio's referencing Jonah, and Pinocchio is a classic a great 5-star masterpiece that I showed you for the first time.
Oh, bullshit.
I haven't seen it.
In like 10 years, maybe.
Okay. Pinocchio's great.
Yeah.
The best Disney film.
I liked Pinocchio a lot as a kid.
It's a masterpiece.
I haven't seen it in
saw it?
years, so maybe you need to show it to me, Tim. A
I
very,
don't know.
very
You and I
long
are
time.
just we're on opposite ends.
Yeah, you
these
probably
days.
won't like Jiminy Cricket.
Yeah, you'll be like Jiminy Cricket is an asshole.
I always like Jiminy.
You hate him.
I
No, it's
like
fine.
him.
I don't know. I just assume. I don't assume our agreement on movies anymore. So. Okay, so, because it was a scarring experience for both of us. I feel like so we just need to. Anyway, go back and listen to that episode if you want to hate our show. Anyway, so chapter 12, Tash and Zack, they hold on to one of the Waladon's teeth to avoid being swallowed, and DV uses a laser to cut a hole in the roof of the Waladon's mouth.
Quite inhumane.
Yeah, it's pretty fucked up, actually.
Yeah, honestly, that's brutal.
Shouts to DV, hard as fuck.
Yeah, DV gives no shit.
He's the hardest droid since the T-1000, baby.
I say TC-14.
TC-14 is hard as fuck.
Yeah.
She goes hard.
Yeah.
All right.
Serves the Jedi.
Make yourself comfortable. My master will be with you shortly.
All right, are we gonna edit that? Are we gonna edit that out?
Sam does not approve of your TC-14 impression. All right, so anyway, and amid all the howling agony that this inhumane act inflicts upon this beast, they escape from the beast's mouth and back into the sea, and they swim back to shore. Zack leads Tash back there, and DV though is nowhere to be found. Tash starts mumbling once again about one of us must die, and then she snapped out of it again, still doesn't remember. They approach a building called the Master's Workshop. All kinds of scraps. Zack is pumped. He loves scraps. He's like, this is super prime, this is choice. Do you say choice? I feel like that's something you would say, Levi. You're like, oh, this steak is choice.
No, I would never say choice.
It's choice, baby. I feel like you would say that.
No.
Anyway, so
That's not in my vocabulary.
I'm making things up for you. It's part of the mythology of the show. Let's just go along with it.
I wouldn't eat a steak either, but we won't get into that.
I have no allegiance to steak. You don't need to worry about that.
Okay, all right. Other people would have attacked me for that.
Hamburger is better than steak.
I agree.
No shit.
Hamburgers
much better
rule.
delivery system for that animal. So anyway, anyway, at the same time, what am I talking about? Oh yeah, all kinds of scraps all over this place, all over the Master's Workshop, and he could build so much stuff out of this. He's super excited, but Tash is pretty uninterested. But then she spots a lightsaber. That's right, the weapon of a Jedi Knight. So, at the same time, Zack spots the head of a BT-2000 droid, and this droid system is the one that runs Imperial Star Destroyers, so super advanced. And they both pick up their coveted items at the same time. And at that time, a voice booms out, "Who disturbs the Maker's sleep?" Zack drops his item. Tash ignites hers. The voice continues, "Who disturbs..." Wait,
Okay.
I meant the next line. "The craft of the Maker is forbidden to the living. Intruders, prepare to meet your doom." All the mechanical objects in the room come to life, and they attack our brother and sister duo.
And they're like combining and forming larger scrap together droids, and they corner Zack, and he's screaming for Tash to help him, but she's standing there frozen with the lightsaber. She knows she can use it to defeat the droids, but she's stiff with fear that she'll fail to save her brother, fail to use a Jedi weapon, fail to be a Jedi. So she looks at Zack and she says, "I'm sorry," and she deactivates the lightsaber. And that's when she does that, all the droids, they fall apart, they stop moving, and they're unsure of what happened, but they don't want to stick around to find out. So
I wouldn't either.
So they go looking for a safe place, and they agree to go to the one place that they did not see a hologram, the airlock. So they get to the airlock, they hop inside, they think they're safe, but then out of the corner of his eye, Zack sees that hideous creature Gog unleashed, and it opens the airlock, and Tash gets sucked into the vacuum of space.
Oh boy. And so Tash pulls herself back pretty easily into the dome, and she and Zack are greeted by Uncle Hool. And Hool says, Uncle Hool's back. We're like, whoa, Uncle Hool, you're back.
Where'd you come from?
Uncle Hool says, I know what's going on with this place. I figured it out. And he's going to lead them back to the administration building and back to Faji's office. So I'm going to read a little bit here. He says, Welcome, Faji said. I understand you've had quite a day at the Hologram Fun World. Quite a day, Tash snapped. Your holograms killed our friend. They almost killed us. Faji chuckled. Oh, no. I assure you no one has been killed. At least not yet. That's something we've been thinking about. It's something we've been thinking about for a long time. That's my Feige impression. With startling quickness, the smile fell away from Faji's face. Then Faji's face itself fell away. The Baron Administrator's skin crawled across his frame, and in 2 blinks of an eye, he had changed shape. Tash and Zack were looking at another Shido. Gog! Zack cried. The presence of the evil scientist was not nearly as terrifying as what happened next. Gog turned to Uncle Hool and nodded satisfactorily. Excellent work, Dr. Hool. Hool shrugged. It was quite simple. They are trusting. You can't be working with him, Tash insisted in a panic. He's your enemy. He's your enemy, Hool replied. Gog and I have been working together since the beginning of Project Starscream.
Oh, shit.
Whom?
Zack shook his head. It can't be true. It is, Gog said, and now we'll prove it. Hool, destroy these 2 interlopers.
Oh no, not another cliffhanger.
A blaster appeared in Uncle Hool's hand. He put it right between Zack's eyes.
Holy shit.
Something I just realized, this book does not have a double cliffhanger chapter. Like
it doesn't, where there's a page break cliffhanger and then more
and then,
chapter.
Yeah, 2 cliffhangers in one chapter.
Couple.
Yep, not in this one. So Uncle Hool, he's got the blaster to Zack's head, and he starts laughing evilly. Thinking fast, Zack remembers he still has the electronic sabak dealer in his pocket, and he pulls it out, and he shoots a whole deck of cards straight into Hool's face. So they run. Uncle Hool's in pursuit, and they end up in the Star Chamber, where there is a holographic map of the galaxy. And while they're hiding there, they recognize their home planet, Alderaan. And as they're admiring it, a dark sphere emerges near it. It's the Death Star, and it's prepping to fire its laser. That's when DV burst into the room. He's thankful that he finally found them, and he says, I have somewhere safe that we can go. So they take off running, and Tash collapses. She's got a headache. She's like, my head, it hurts too much. I refuse to go on. And she's just like, this has been like one nightmare after another. And Zack's like, wait a minute, that's it. Uncle Hool being an agent of the Empire, you failing to be a Jedi, they're all nightmares. We're still in the Nightmare Machine!
Whoa! They've been in it this whole time.
Sometimes I feel like I'm in the Nightmare Machine.
I know, man.
Motherfuckers. I don't know. I'm tired. Sorry.
Oh, it's fine. We're all tired. Like I mentioned, this weekend was quite a nightmare machine for me. So, DV is dubious about this idea that they've been in the nightmare machine this whole time. But you know why? That's because he's a hologram too.
Yeah, obviously.
That's why. How are they going to get out of this nightmare machine? Remember, they have to. It's like he tries saying, whatever, stop simulation or whatever. That doesn't work. But remember, the other way was that you would face your greatest fear. All right, and so they remember that, and then they realize that this fear, the greatest fear that either Tash or Zach have is losing not Uncle Hool, not DV, but each other.
I had my arm around Tim as we said that.
Indeed.
Aww.
We've been through so much, both me and Sam, but also Tash and Zach.
Yeah, I can relate.
Like, they've been through so many trials and tribulations that if they lost each other, it would be the worst trial, the greatest fear they could possibly have. So they realized that they got to do that, and that's why Tash has been saying that one of us must die, because she realized this subconsciously, right? And so Zach says goodbye to Tash for now and pushes the button to get to the final stage.
He says good night, but not goodbye.
Oh, and so and when he pushes this button, it plunges him into total darkness.
And he woke with a jolt, as though his mind had suddenly slammed back into his body. He was lying on cold metal, and for a moment he could not move. His body felt heavy. His arms and legs were numb. He felt like he had been sleeping for many hours. He could not open his eyes. So from here, Zach, when he does finally open his eyes, he realizes that the hideous creature that Gog had unleashed with the tentacles are sucked. Like, he looks over, Tash is next to him, those other kids are next to him too, and they each have the tentacles on their forehead from this hideous creature. Zach, he rips it off. The creature screams and starts to chase him, and Zach, he hears a pounding over on the one wall, and there's a door, and he runs over there and he pulls the door open, and boom, it's Lando. And Lando, without hesitating, pulls out his blaster and shoots the creature right between the eyes,
hard.
killing the creature. And DV comes in, and they're like,
who's a cool guy? Lando.
Yeah, I've known that since 1980, and I wasn't even born until 1990.
So they're just like, well, okay, well, that's the one problem but solved, but now there's a swarm of stormtroopers after us, and you guys have only been in this building for an hour. And they're like, an hour? It's been days. And then, sure enough, about a dozen stormtroopers come in. They have no other choice but to surrender. And Gog enters. Gog is involved. Gog was there. And he's just like, oh, you guys were the perfect test subjects for my nightmare machine, but I have more experiments planned for you guys. So of course he cuffs them. They're all loaded aboard a Imperial transport, and they're in a separate ship than Gog. When they're sitting there in silence, and when suddenly one of the stormtroopers suddenly takes his blaster and bashes the pilot on the head with it, and he removes his helmet, and surprise, surprise, it's Uncle Hool!
Oh, the
that
true
hooligan.
Hool.
The real Hool. And turns out Hool said, my research was correct. As soon as he was spying on Gog, and as soon as he suspected that Gog's nightmare machine was the next step, and that he knew where the kids were, he rushed to Hologram Fun World so that he could save them. And apparently Lando had given him just the proper, whenever Lando and DV had accidentally alerted the stormtroopers, it gave him the perfect opportunity to hop in there with them and get the stormtrooper uniform on to save them. So Uncle Hool takes, of course, control of the ship and blasts them to safety. And then we have the epilogue here. And basically, they say goodbye to Lando. Lando's on his way to a Tibanna gas mine on Bespin. That's where his next potential investment could be.
Ooh,
and he says, if you guys ever need to go somewhere safe, hit me up.
Yeah, hit me up. I won't turn you over to the Empire.
And Uncle Hool says, no, with us you won't be safe, Lando. And so basically there's a moment here where the Hool, DV, Zach, and Tash are all, together, and Tash has a slew of questions for him, and what were they? What happened during the missing 4 years of your life? And Uncle Hool, he's just like, I'm not going to answer those right now, but I can assure you one thing. Gog is extremely vengeful, and I believe that our peril has only just begun.
Crazy. So, this book, let's start with our guest, Sam. This is the first Galaxy Fear book you've read in probably 20 years. Or close to it.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
15 years.
That's reasonable.
And so what were your thoughts on the book? You came in, you didn't have a ton of context from the previous books.
Yeah.
How was it reading this kind of cold?
I still had fun with it. Like, I think any good book in a series, you can find something to jump into and get with the picture. I thought the whole hologram thing was kind of cool. I mean, I'm sure I've seen movies like that with like illusions and shit like that. But it's kind of cool. Like, these two kids, they don't have their guardian figure with them. They kind of got to figure things out on their own. But it has Lando. Lando's cool. And I'm wondering if Dengar was a hologram now too. I'm kind of getting ticked off if he is. Some of the Starscream stuff, that stuff I didn't remember as well. Like, I knew they were from Alderaan. I knew Alderaan got blown up because obviously I've seen Star Wars. But I mean, and I like they find out they never really left the. It's not the most like original idea, but it's it's like, oh, they were in the Nightmare Machine the whole time.
Yeah,
I feel like I've read a story like that somewhere, but for a kid's book, it's cool.
So on this show we have our patented 10 point midi-chlorian scale, and you can rate a book from 1 to 10 midi-chlorians, or if you love it this much, you can give it off the charts. So Anakin Skywalker, his midi-chlorian count is off the charts. But what would you give The Nightmare Machine by John Whitman?
Where's your midi-chlorian chart at? I want to see it.
Oh, we can pull it up, I suppose.
It's way dated. We've not adjusted it at all. We've just been flavoring it whatever character we want to.
Yes, but it's just a classic 10-point scale. It doesn't really...
Oh.
So, think about if you're rating a movie on Letterboxd and multiply it by 2.
I don't know. If I go like 4.
4?
Yeah.
Okay. I can see that if you don't have the full context of the series.
That's part of it. I mean, I think if I'd read the whole thing, I like the whole brother sister duo dynamic. I like that. The cover, the Rancor reminds me of the courtship of Princess Leia, kind of, because there's a Rancor on that too.
Yes, that's true. That book, there's a 4 right there.
That's a Dave Wolverton book there.
That's a 4 out of 10 midi-chlorians right there. Han acts ridiculous in that book. Not like him.
Yeah,
Anyway.
Did he try to run off to build a dream sky house? Was he that level ridiculous?
Kidnap Leia. At least I haven't read that book since I was in fourth grade.
Yeah, same here.
Anyway, so Levi, what did you think of the book?
I had a lot of fun with this book. I loved Lando in the book. I loved the whole scene with him and Zach and him explaining Sabak, and like that. The whole scene was just a lot of fun. And I thought though things felt a little rushed at the end here. Going into this book, I was wondering if Gog was actually going to be involved in this story. I thought maybe this would kind of stand alone on its own. But apparently, he just kind of showed up at the end there, and then he just kind of disappeared at the end there. I hear you guys muttering about the fact that the trailer is still not up.
We're not even talking. We're talking about the Patriots-Jets game right now, actually.
Yeah, well, it needs to be halftime, and then the trailer will air during halftime.
From what I understand. Okay. Yeah, the Patriots are crushing the Jets.
Well,
I don't watch
they're
football.
The Patriots, so...
Yeah.
I like Jet, the song by Paul McCartney.
Yeah, that's a good song.
Woo!
Is that
but
a mocking tone I hear?
I was not a mocking tone. That was no. I would never dare diss Sir Paul on any platform ever. Really.
What's Paul McCartney's full name?
Oh boy.
You don't look it up either. I can see you right now.
I'm not. I'm holding a book. It's not in this book. I'm looking at Galaxy of Fear, hoping that his middle name will show up in this book, and it won't.
Relax, please, Sam. I'll give you a hint. You know his middle name.
I do?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Well, I know it's Sir Paul.
No.
Oh,
his
it's
first
Paul.
name is not Paul.
Oh, well, I'm the biggest poser of them all, I
It's
guess.
fine.
So.
Don't relax. Everybody needs to relax.
Yeah, we're just picking on
We're
you.
just having fun.
I like throwing twit questions at people.
Tweety Bird over here.
It's James.
Okay, all right. Well,
James
anyway.
Paul McCartney.
Obviously, I gave you a hint earlier when I said I like James Lucino. I was setting up that joke like 2 hours ago.
Damn it. Damn it. It's like this. It's frickin' the snowman. I gave you all the clues, Mr. Policeman. You could have saved them.
You need to stop trying to make the snowman happen.
I wish other people would watch the snowman so that they could...
like after the way you were so dismissive of the Great Winter's Tale, I feel like I can't.
Well, all right.
We'll talk about
The snowman is more entertaining than Winter's Tale. Anyway, I'm going to give this, out of the 4 books we've read so far, I think I would rate this one second out of the 4.
Okay.
A little higher than, I liked it better than Planet Plague. I guess I can't tell if I like it better than Eaten Alive or not. But I think City of the Dead is definitely the top of the 4 we've read. So I'm going to give it a 7, Tim.
All right, well, I'm in a similar boat as you. I liked it a lot. I had a fun time with it. I like the theme park setting. It's fun. I would probably put it around 6.5 midi-chlorians because I don't like it as much as the first 2 books. I think it's probably around the same level as Planet Plague. But I loved Lando. I loved having Lando around. And I'm glad we know who the scientist is, although the reveal was a little anticlimactic because it was kind of setting it up as though it was like somebody we would know as readers beforehand.
Especially with Dr. Evazan being like, oh, you. Like, it was definitely felt like we would know this person. But
yeah, like, even if they weren't a huge character, they could have been some sort of small background character from the movies or something like that.
Yeah, it could have been somebody who saw in Jabba's palace for half a second. Even.
Yeah. So, but I'm not mad.
Wax Sivrak or something like that.
Yeah. But I'm not mad at it. 6.5 is pretty good. And so, are we at halftime of this game yet?
We're almost there.
All right. Well, you might hear us night of. You might hear a later one. But you'll hear some sort of talk about the trailer in this episode for sure. Whether it's recorded tonight or later, we'll find out. But next week, we're done with Galaxy of Fear. It's November 1st next week. So we're done with Galaxy of Fear for now. So we're going to cover Ghost of the Jedi sometime in the new year. Because we don't want to wait a full year before we continue the series. But next week, though, we are returning to the world of Jude Watson, and we're going to cover Jedi Quest, the hardcover, or it's not all hardcovers, but the book. It just says Jedi Quest, and what's it called? Path to something.
Boy, Path of something.
It's only on the inside cover. I don't
basically
remember,
book 0.
Book 0, so we're going to cover that next week, and that will kick off Jedi Quest for us. We're going to cover 3 of those in a row, and we got some new trilogy tie-in books.
I think are they at halftime?
They
right
are now, yeah.
Yeah,
so it might be airing soon. So if you'll know if we did this tonight already, because you'll be like, why are they talking about this? They already talked about this at the halftime of our podcast. So whatever. Next week, Jedi Quest. This was Galaxy of Fear Month. Very fun. I want to thank all our guests
Yes, thank
Brooke
everybody
White,
for being
Dan
here.
May, Mel Lyon, and especially
Levi, thanks for joining me and Tim on our podcast.
Yes, you're very
Padawan's
welcome.
Library.
You guys have had way more moments together in this episode than I think I've ever had with Tim in any episode
we've
of
had
our
so
show.
many moments. You're wrong. Anyway, but Sam, you can come back anytime.
Thank you. I will be back.
But anyway, so we're
I'll be back tomorrow to record the next episode, folks.
yeah, we're going daily. No, we're not. But anyway, so thank you, Sam, for coming. And remember, please, to rate and review the podcast on Apple Podcasts. Subscribe, all that stuff. 5 stars only, of course, when you rate and review. And of course, no matter what Dan May says, that's what we need. 5 stars only. So, stay tuned for next week, Jedi Quest.
Until the books are due back.
The library is closed.
Padawan Library is hosted and produced by Tim May and Levi Peretic. It is edited by Tim May. Our theme song is by The Astral Project. Our artwork is by Freddie Funbuns. Padawan Library is copyright 2019 by Tim May and Levi Peretic. All rights reserved.